Quick little spoiler alert before we get into the video. I will be talking about the last season of The Boys and also Gen V. So if you haven't watched them and you want to, go do that. Or or you could just like play this in the background while you watch those at the same time. It's 2026, contribute to noise pollution. What's up? Wait. Yui! I started watching The Boys in 2023 at the age of 15, and I immediately fell in love with it. I remember trying to convince everyone around me to watch it because it was so good and the best depiction of superheroes in media. And while I still believe this partially, the ending left a little to be desired. At the beginning of the show, we are introduced to a gang of interesting characters, and the show takes care really explaining their backstories and their motives. We have Butcher, whose wife, Becca, was working with Vought and then went missing, and now he's hellbent on getting revenge against the Vought company, and Homelander, who he assumes is the reason she disappeared. MM, my personal favorite out of the Boys gang, whose grandfather died at the hands of Soldier Boy's recklessness, and then his father worked himself to death trying to get justice against the Vought Corporation. Frenchie, who I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't really understand Frenchie's backstory. Like, I know about his crime and being involved with the wrong people, but I couldn't tell you why he continues to work with the Butcher. If there's someone watching this and they can explain it to me, please do. Leave like a huge paragraph full of like useless stuff in the comments and I will read it. Kimiko, a Soup who was kidnapped by and forced to be a part of the Shining Light Liberation Army to become a child soldier. She stays with the Boys because she wants to and can, I guess. They do like save her from the Shining Light Liberation Army, so I guess, you know, she feels like she owes them maybe. Lastly, we have Huey Campbell. I guess you could say he's the main character of the show. His girlfriend was killed by A-Train when he ran through her. Huey's introduced to the Boys when Butcher essentially uses him to bug the Seven Tower and then tries to discard him like he's nothing. This is a common theme for Butcher, using people to get what he wants and then treating them like they're garbage. It's one of his best qualities. In my opinion, I don't actually think Huey is the main character. I think what happened to his girlfriend, Robin, is the inciting incident into, like, introducing him into the plot, but the history of Vought is just so much deeper than him and his girlfriend being killed. Then we are introduced to the Seven. When the show starts, there are actually only 6, as the 7th member, Lamplighter, had left at that point. And this is a group of 7 Soups who essentially run the city. What city? I don't remember. To the public, they're heroes and protectors, but if you know them and you're on the inside, they're honestly some of the worst people you've ever met. The list of the 7 is Translucent, whose name is self-explanatory, Queen Maeve, a female 7 member, who is strong. Yes, queen. Oh no. A-Train, a speedster with a drug problem. The Deep, he can talk to sea creatures and has weird gills on his body. Black Noir, my favorite character from the show. He's kind of like a ninja, I guess, would be the best way to describe him. And at the head of it all, we have Homelander. The best way to describe Homelander would be, think of Superman if he had an Oedipus complex and daddy issues. That's him. Starlight is the 7th addition to the 7, and she joins in the very first episode. Of course, she is immediately sexually assaulted by the Deep, because, like I said, they're horrible people. Now that I've explained, like, the baseline characters for this show, I'm gonna get into my commentary of the ending. My first major issue with this season is gotta be, like, the writing, especially the language that they're using. Not swearing, I do not have a fucking problem with that. I feel like that meme where it's like, hello fellow kids, that's what I felt like. There's so much crude language in this season, especially from Kimiko, who spent most of her screen time signing to communicate. It hurt to hear terms like dirty cock come from her mouth. I don't ever remember her signing anything like that. In fact, in season 3, there's a scene where she's envisioning her and Frenchie doing a musical number in a hospital. And while I acknowledge that she's a grown woman and would have a sexuality, it just feels very out of character for her. I honestly don't think the writers knew what to do with Kimiko once she could speak, and so they kind of just made her comic relief, which leads me into another complaint that I have about the writing. Everything is comic relief. This season doesn't take itself seriously at all. And while some people could argue that the show has never taken itself seriously, and partially I would agree with you, it just feels different than before. It felt like at every important moment when it needed to be serious, there was a character giving a quippy line, and I was totally taken out of this, like, the seriousness of the situation that they're in. Every time I would be interested in what they were planning, someone would say some line that made it light and funny, and I didn't like that personally. I just feel like the show's aesthetic is naturally dark and gritty, and it kind of undercuts that with what the characters are saying. I mean, Frenchie dies at the end of episode 7, and then the start of episode 8 is his funeral, and in his will, the thing that he wrote to, I guess, say goodbye to everyone, he's just talking about how he has seen all their assholes. Not only does this feel out of character for him, it also feels like really stupid. Like, this is some person's favorite character, and at the end of the day, he was dumbed down to a dumb joke about assholes. And I feel like that's really the perfect metaphor for what the show has become. If everything in the show is comic relief, it's redundant. The point of comic relief is to relieve the viewer of the tension in that moment, but if every moment is relief, it defeats the purpose of having it in the first place.
No cap on God, bro.
I truly think the Deep should have died in season 3. Chase Crawford is awesome and hilariously funny, and I understand wanting to work with him as long as you can, but the Deep was not needed. I also have a special hatred for him for killing the second Black Noir. He's truly an insecure ball of fragile masculinity. I get that it's an important commentary, and I'm totally on board with that, but he's fucking annoying. At every turn, I think someone is finally gonna snap and kill him because he's pathetic and weak, but they never do. He just hurts people and ruins everything and gets away with it. When he finally did die at the hands of things he once considered his friends, and the only place where he was accepted, I felt like that was kind of justice for all the harm that he had done, but it also just felt way too quick. I think he should have suffered a lot more for all of the horrible things that he did. I mean, Black Noir number 2 literally just wanted to perform on stage, and he couldn't handle that he was calling him out on his shitty behavior and how pathetic he was, so he killed him, and he got away with it. Also, I've noticed people calling him the Peak, and this is just, whether it's a joke or not, I think it's really weird considering in the very first episode, if you've only watched the first episode, you know that he sexually assaulted Starlight, so it's not something to be praised or admired. He's a horrible person. What to say about A-Train? I mean, he was one of the only redeeming qualities of this season. His character arc was written in just the right way. He was so real and authentic. I love A-Train. His death was probably the most devastating for me in this season, other than Black Noir. The moment he dodges that woman, which results in his death, that shows his growth. It was beautifully impactful and heartbreaking. It was everything it needed to be. It was the perfect ending to a perfectly flawed character. It was also a really nice touch that the girl he dodged looked very similarly to Robin. Gen V was a spin-off from The Boys about a group of modern young soups navigating the same universe. In my opinion, Gen V is better because I can relate to the characters more being a young person myself, and also I feel they're just written more real. They're dealing with real-life issues while also coming to understand their powers and the corrupt soup system that controls the country. In Gen V, the main character Marie Moreau is supposed to be maybe the most powerful soup alive. She has the ability to control blood, just like Victoria Newman from The Boys. Season 2 of Gen V ends with Marie Moreau and her friends teaming up with Starlight to join the rebellion. It is heavily implied in Gen V that Marie may be the only one capable of killing Homelander. I finished Gen V right before I started watching season 5 of The Boys, and I was so excited to see those characters in another show that I loved. I was really looking forward to an epic battle between a teenager with identity issues and a daddy's boy with a breast milk fetish. To my absolute dismay, this is not what I got at all. In fact, the characters from Gen V were treated like garbage when it came to season 5. 2 of the characters aren't even in the season at all. Starlight just uses them to get information and then tells them to get fucked. I believe the reason for Gen V's cancellation and removal from the 5th season is because the writers wanted to hype up their new project, Vought Rising. Vought Rising is another spin-off show in the same universe as The Boys, but about Soldier Boy back in the day with his quirky group of complex characters. I was much more open and excited for Vought Rising when they hadn't marred Gen V to sell it. Also, who the fuck cares about Clara? She was literally a Nazi. I don't remember Soldier Boy once mentioning Clara in season 3 or 4, but suddenly he's compromising his already non-existent morals to give Homelander the Compound V, making him immortal, because it's what Clara would have wanted. Shut up and go do some more coke and bang some more old women. I saw someone on TikTok saying that Sage, the smartest person alive, being outsmarted by Love was stupid, and I don't entirely agree with that. On one hand, it is stupid that the smartest person on the planet couldn't predict that Love was going to change the way these people acted. On the other hand, Love is unpredictable. It makes people do things they never thought they would, and that other people never saw coming. That being said, I don't think it would have happened if it weren't for Vought Rising, so it may be out of character because they needed it to be. I can't put into words how nervous I was when Homelander injected that Compound V into his veins. It was the end of episode 6, and I genuinely didn't know how they were going to get out of this. Homelander was a godlike being who was ruthless and didn't care about anyone but himself. At least that's what I thought. He finally got the Compound V, and he could have done anything. He could have killed all the non-believers, he could have killed everyone and had the whole planet to himself. But he didn't do anything. He just sat in the Oval Office and begged to suck Butch's dick before he died because he had lost his powers. I will say though, I had been waiting the whole show to see Homelander reduced to just a normal dude, and I was glad I did see that, but I also thought there was going to be a fight between him and Marie where they're battling each other with both of their powers intact. I will say that I think most of the cast should have died at the end of the season. This may seem harsh, but I really heavily feel this is the type of show that needed a bittersweet ending. Yes, most of them died, but they also got Homelander, something they've been trying to do for 5 seasons. This is just my opinion. I prefer devastating endings over happy ones. Call me a sadist. I personally really liked the choice to have Huey be the one to kill the Butcher. I think it really tied together the comparison between Huey and Lenny, the Butcher's little brother. The guilt Butcher feels for leaving his brother with their abusive father, resulting in his suicide, haunts him, and Huey's similarities to Lenny trigger that, and it's confronting. The Butcher's character arc over the show is essentially a straight line. In fact, it may actually be descending. Butcher's grief, guilt, and need for revenge consumes him and drives him to make all the wrong decisions and hurt the people he cares about. The Butcher, in my opinion, is not someone to be admired, but more of a cautionary tale. Even after he had successfully killed Homelander, he didn't seem happy. After 5 seasons, he finally achieved the goal he'd been trying to achieve, but he was alone. He had done everything for Becca, and he could never get her back. At the end of the day, Billy will always do what is best for him, and it's part of what makes him such a well-written character. He's reliable in the sense that you can always count on him to be a selfish piece of shit. It must have been pretty easy for the writers to write for Butcher. You just take all the decisions he has to make and pick the most self-serving one. I don't think there is a way that the country could just go back to normal after all of that. The state of the country was just so divided and messed up. I am extremely aware that The Boys show is a political and social commentary. Honestly, it's a little scary how similar some of the events in the show are to real things that are happening in America. I liked seeing MM reunited with his wife and his daughter. I think that's what he deserved, but I also still stand by the fact that he should have died. I also liked him being the one to take care of Ryan. I honestly don't think there's anyone in the show better to do that. I guess I'm happy that Huey and Starlight had a happy ending. Again, I really believed that most people should have died, so all my opinions on them all having happy endings is very half-hearted. I do have one thing to say about their ending, and it's to do with the name of their baby. Why did they name it after Huey's dead ex-girlfriend? It's really strange to me. Yes, I understand, she was the reason that Huey was introduced to all these people and became a part of this, but it just feels weird to name your baby after your dead ex-girlfriend, or to name your baby after your partner's dead ex-girlfriend. At the end of the day, The Boys ending was not horrible. It could have definitely been better, but it's clear how much effort and work the cast and crew put in, and I hope they're really proud. Making a TV show is not an easy job, especially one of this size. Seeing all the photos of the crew at the end of episode 8 made me tear up. Also, if you could you please bring back Gen V? I need to see the end of Emma's character development. I need it. Thank you for listening to me rant. I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't, I'm sincerely sorry. There's probably a bunch of stuff that I missed, so feel free if you watch this and you have different opinions or have other things you want to comment on, put it in the comments and I will read it. This is my video for the year, so I'll see you whenever something I find interesting is popular. Bye!